恭敬大德圣经，为此法会及一切众生，经转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to end suffering and into bliss and in birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto sucedoye olahuri sanmyao sanputosye.
Namo sadanto sucedoye olahuri sanmyao sanputosye.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。I'll give you a line, you give it back. It's different from the printed one. Supreme and wondrous Dharma.
Supreme and wondrous Dharma.
Subtle and profound.
Subtle and profound.
Rarely is encountered.
Rarely is encountered.
Even in a billion eons.
Even in a million eons.
Did I hear million? I said billion. Who's fighting over a couple billion? Even in a billion eons.
Even in a billion eons.
It says 100,000 million. Oh. But now we see and hear it.
And now we see and hear it.
And accept it reverently.
And accept it reverently.
May we truly understand.
May we truly understand.
The Buddha's actual meaning.
The Buddha's actual meanings.
Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our sutra lecture. We're going to have to update, finally, our sheet. We've been adapting it to the improved version for months now, and time. So our print staff who are online, let's make that a project for this week to update our chanting sheet. So welcome to our sutra lecture. This is indeed July the 8th, and listening to our neighborhood block parties, might as well be July the 4th, but July the 4th happened midweek, so we're kind of doing our celebration at the end of the week. And tonight, here in the Buddha Hall of the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, we're doing our ultimate Independence Day. If the 4th of July is the United States of America's Independence Day, then when we can open the Buddha Sutras and look into this wisdom, we're getting to the not only independent but liberated. We're doing I wonder if there'll be a Liberation Day holiday in the future. So for us, we don't have to wait till the annual birthday of the nation. We can do it every Saturday night when we open the sutras. We can celebrate Independence Day. And the Chinese translation for that would probably be 自在日, 自在节日, which means an independence that comes from self-mastery, from being able to allow your six senses to freely interact with the world around you, but not stop anywhere, not be caught, not attached to any sight, sound, smell, taste, sensation of touch or dharma, and have that kind of lively, unfettered interaction, purified of me and mine and what I want and dislike, etc., etc. That would be true independence. That's Tzu-Zai, right? One might wish. So, in the process of getting unattached from sights and sounds, I'd like to invite everybody to turn around and look at the balcony and the wall. We have stained glass Bodhisattva shadows. The green is a dragon. That's Vasuki, the Dragon King. And over here, the yellow is, this is Elopatra, I believe, the Dragon King on that wall. So we have Dragon King stained glass shadows. How about that? Not everybody can make that claim, right? Or wants to, right? That's true too, but we can do it. The wonderful thing is it interacts with the sunlight and it moves. It moves as the sun's setting over the Golden Gate Bridge, due west, by the way. That's almost exactly compass west. And the shadows, they start here at about 2:30 and they make their way across the floor and then up the wall, and they'll be gone by the end of the lecture. But while they're here, we have the protection of the Tian Long Ba Bu, the gods and the dragons and the Eightfold Pantheon, the spiritual being. So how wonderful is that? This is the Flower Garland Sutra, the Avatamsaka. And we start with bringing in spiritual presence, and what we're going to chant, or do some brief chanting here. It's on the front cover, if you got it right there. This is the translation in English, and what we're going to chant are the Chinese characters down below, and if you can't read those characters yet, there's the romanization below. So we'll do this. Tammu da fang guang fo hua yan jing hua yan hai hui fo pu sa mu da fang guang fo hua yan jing hua yan hai hui fo pu sa nam Ta fang guang fo hua yan ji hua yan hai hui fo pu sa nam mô đa phang hua yan ji hua yan hai hui fo pu sa nam ta phang quang phổ hua yan jing hua yan hai hui phổ phu sa nam mô ta phang quang phổ hua yan jing hua yan hai hui phổ phu sa. One of the features of this Dharma lecture, Sutra lecture series is that we've got a Vietnamese translation happening. If anybody would like to hear Vietnamese translation, it's going on in the balcony right above. And you can dedicate one ear to the English and one ear to the Vietnamese and turn it into a language lesson at the same time. Wow, I am particularly dry. Drink a lot of hot water because this morning, along with maybe a third of our assembly tonight, woke up in the coastal mountains of Oregon, about 20 miles in from the coast near Reedsport, and it's particularly pristine there. There are very few humans have been there, so it's quite a natural environment. And this was the last day of a week up in the Oregon woods called Buddha Root Farm. It's our annual summer camp, and this is number 14. Did he say 13 or 14? Locke is keeping track. 14, Jerry? 第14届, right? I think. 14th year. So quite a wonderful event. And then a car, 4 of us, set off early. And ordinarily, for 12 of those years, I drove our monastery car up and back, putting in 10 hours behind the wheel going down. And last year we got a big bus, and we all came together on the bus, and quite a number of us tonight came back on the bus. But concerned that we might not make it back for this particular lecture, myself and Heng Sure and also Jerry took a plane from Eugene. It's called the North Fork Airport. Beautiful little airports. Little airports are where it's at, my goodness. And to get to the airport from where we were in the camp, we had to go over the mountain. And it was kind of not really sure whether that road connected. Local folks told us, yep, you can do it. You can do it. Your car should be able to do it, And so we go 5 miles north instead of south, as we always do. And then the little road goes off to the left, and the grass growing up, whipping under the undercarriage of the car, because no car had been down this road for weeks and weeks and weeks. And just 2 days before, taking the right fork of that road, 2 of our cars, one after lunch, or one before lunch and one after lunch, had seen a mountain lion sitting like this on the roadside, and then watching the car come and kind of running alongside playfully, the way cats do, And then the afternoon car saw the mountain lion again. So this is kind of still in the cub stage, wasn't fully grown. So there's a very healthy, strong natural ecosystem happening there. That's what we saw. So we're going over the mountain, and let me suggest to people who take mountain back roads, you want to go slow enough so that you can enjoy. By the way, chairs are available for anyone who would like a chair. Please don't feel like you need to sit on the floor. If you like to sit on the floor, I like to sit on the floor, but some people are happier in a chair. So, suggestion that if you're traveling over mountain roads that are little traveled, watch the road surface as well, because we hit a major pothole at about 40 miles an hour twice, and bang, the whole frame of the car. And it was nearly invisible because this was not only a 1-lane gravel road with the grass growing up from in between the tracks, but the Queen Anne's lace was now 8 feet tall, way over a person's head and leaning in. So we were going through this tunnel of Queen Anne's lace, and bang, and didn't think much of it except, wow, that was deep. And when we finally made it the other side of the mountain and discovered a paved road, hallelujah, a paved road again, and then merged gradually onto a road with a paint stripe, so 2-lane blacktop. We got onto the state highway leading to Eugene, and our tire blew out. Boom. Conk, 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 conk. And so a little bit of white knuckle driving there for a while, but we made it with lots of time to spare in the end, just right. So then we're up in the air. Oh my goodness. And the 10-hour drive. Now from Eugene, it becomes a 12-hour drive, right? If we were in a car, but we were in an airplane. And an hour and 20 minutes later, we're back in San Francisco. Oh my goodness. So to go from the stillness of the Chan Hall on the top of Turtle Mountain near Reedsport to this tiny, twisting gravel mountain road, climbing up over the top and driving past mountain lions territory, and then into Eugene. And the fun in Eugene today was what? It was the county, they call it not the county fair, the country fair. County fair is, government run. It's largely a commercial showcase of the best produce, the best hogs, the best heifers and stuff like that, and rodeos. This was the country fair, which is kind of the It's what used to be Renaissance Fair, now taken over by the IT crowd and people who are, it's kind of a global thing. It's people on stilt walkers and flamethrowers, flame eaters, and fire eaters, and belly dancing, and every kind of amazing, probably marijuana-laced edible you could imagine, and a few you'd never imagined before, and just tremendous country fair. And we drove by, and the cars parked in the parking lot. We may have seen 1,500 vehicles just in the field, parked in rows and rows and rows and rows and rows. It took 5 minutes to get past all the cars. People must have been having a very good time at the country fair. So just in one day, and here we are, sitting now in the Buddha Hall, ready to crack open the Flower Garland Sutra. And I see lots of folks who may be new to this particular text, and I think online we're webcasting onto YouTube at the moment. Hot water. So let me give a quick introduction of what we're about to listen to. This is the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra, spoken by the Buddha. It's a text from what's called in our tradition, this is the Chinese Mahayana tradition, it's called the teaching school. They call it the Jiaozong. And what does that mean? It means this is the part of the Buddhist tradition that looks at what the Buddha said. What is that different from? It's different from meditation. It's different from mantras and initiation. It's different from devotion. And the Buddhism that talks about karma yoga, service, that kind of thing, it's devoted to words the Buddha spoke. The reason why we're emphasizing that here at the monastery is because our teacher, the late Master Xuanhua, whose photo is here, made this part every single day. Every single day he was alive in America or wherever he was. From 1960, he arrived in 1962, but from 1968 was when he started this practice of opening these texts and saying, I'm going to explain this for you line by line for 90 minutes. It's important. So we disciples we realized the necessity of getting our language skills up to speed so we could figure out what he was telling us. Not only the voice of the Buddha in the sutra, but the voice of our teacher in interpreting it. So all you had to do was be there for a day to encounter this teacher saying, this is important. If you want to see the sutras as objects, look at that wall. And if you can't see it because you're on this side of the room, look at that wall. Those are the canon. This is called the Dazhang Jing, the great storehouse of sutras. 100 volumes there. This is called the Xuzhang Jing, the appended storehouse of the Buddha's sutras. In other words, versions of those that were left out. You needed another whole canon to hold them all, right? So if you were raised, as I was, in the Northern European Protestant Christian tradition, I was a Methodist, we had, by golly, the Bible. We did. And the way Methodist theology was done in Toledo, Ohio, was in the beginning of the sermon, beginning of the service, Sunday morning, an hour long, the pastor would quote a line or two from the Hebrew Scriptures, from the Old Testament, right? A line or two. He just quote it, kind of point to it, maybe devote a little bit of thought to it. But then in the sermon, he went directly to the Gospels, to the New Testament, which is the story of Jesus. So the Methodists honored the Hebrew Scriptures, but went to the Gospels. And that was kind of how it was organized, right? And so I grew up knowing that the Bible had two halves, first of all, and the Gospels were the deal. Story of Jesus. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the rest, right? So, okay, that's Scripture. And it was in those covers, the Holy Bible. There's various translations. So that's good. When you get to the Buddhist canon, you've got 100 volumes in this edition. There are other editions that are shorter, right? Now, among those is this one. And our teacher picked out from within this Dazhang Jing is also called the Sanzang Jing, 3 baskets, they call it. Think of a basket holding bread. You know, you put stuff in a basket, bread basket. So the 3 baskets of the Buddhist canon are the words the Buddha spoke, what teachers said later about the words the Buddha spoke, commentaries, in other words. And then the last one was how to organize the community, rules for monks and nuns. That's it. And the biggest one, of course, are the sutras. Commentaries come second, and the rules for the community are much shorter. So, of the first one, the words the Buddha spoke, there are some 1,600 titles that have the word Jing after them, sutra. Now, most of those get read little read. Most people don't read every sutra, but there's a handful that have traditionally, through the centuries of the Buddha's institution, have come along and become, these are the ones. Read this one, right? Master Hua selected out those texts that the Tiantai, particularly the Tiantai Zong, which is the way the Chinese organize these teachings, those are the ones they say, you want to read these. These are the ones. Certainly free to read the rest, and there are people who don't read them as much as recite them. There's a whole practice of starting at number 1 and going all the way through and reciting it. If you have a lot of time, let's say you're in seclusion maybe, you decided to set years aside to stay inside a cell and focus on your mind and your thoughts, that's a good practice. To Yue Zhang Jing, they call it, to read the Tripitaka. Okay, so here we have this one. What about this one, the Avatamsaka, called the flower garland? The name in Sanskrit is the Mahavipulya Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra. What is it? It's the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra of Great Expansive Teachings. So we're now in this sutra. It's a big one. If this were all translated into English completely, with commentary, it would be probably maybe 50, 60 volumes. A scholar named Thomas Cleary, who last I heard was living in Oakland, interestingly, has translated the whole thing, text only, no commentary, into one very thick, fat book with very thin, fragile, what they call Bible paper. Right? A lot of words on every page, small print, to get it all in there. So it has been translated entirely. We're in the process of translating it along with the help of Master Hua's commentary. Our teacher not only picked this out, when he explained it line by line, took him 9 years, doing 90 minutes a night, twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday. So big text. We're in 1 chapter out of 40. We picked out 1 chapter out of 40 to explain here. We've been doing it now for 7 years, whole 1 chapter, because we don't do it every night, we do it once a week. And the chapter that we're on is called the 10 Grounds. Sanskrit, the Dashabhumi, Dashabhumi. The Chinese calls it the Shridipin. And a ground, you could also, that's literal Chinglish. It's not a ground. It's more like a stage, a working towards. And the sutra gives us instructions for how to think, react, speak, and motivate the way a bodhisattva thinks, speaks, acts, and lifts his or her heart. Okay, it's instructions for being a better bodhisattva, how to do it well. That's what it is. So it's a manual, it's a handbook for how to walk the bodhisattva path, they say, and how to practice bodhisattva practices. It's really an instruction manual. And once we kind of look through that lens, once we saw that, it fell into place. Now, who's the intended student? Who is doing it? The sutra gives us a generic, a template, faceless, nameless, but recognizably human, a person. Now, we can learn a lot about it by what it's not. It's not gender specific. This could very easily be female, generic bodhisattva. It could be a male, it could be female. It could be Asian, it could be Western. The sutra does not specify culture. Doesn't specify language. Doesn't talk about anything like social class or caste distinctions, rich or poor. Doesn't register. It's not important, right? Noble or mean or base, That's, you look right through those superficial distinctions. What does it talk about? It talks about living beings and people who are awakened. That it talks about a lot. Who's a living being? Somebody still in samsara. Somebody still confused about where they've come from and where they're going, and people who see that, who understand that, and who take that as their basis. You could say living beings are kind of an ocean, and we're below the water. And the sutra is spoken for everybody below the water, but those few who have lifted either one eye above the water, above the waves, and can see, oh, we're in the water. There are waves coming. It's wet. We're all here together. But that's not all. There's a sky above. And when you lift your head out of the water, you realize, oh, we're underwater until we bring ourselves up. And then we can see. So the sutras for both those of us who are in they call it the kuhai, the ocean of suffering, and people who have worked their way out. Okay? So that's a distinction it makes. And it talks a lot about how living beings below the surface are just drowning, helpless. Think of the Neil Young song, right? Helpless, helpless, helpless. That's a great imitation of Neil Young, by the way. I should be careful with it. Helpless. So we're helpless. And the sutra lumps on living beings. Just says, they're, turn their back on good teachers. Hear the Dharma and run away from it. Are drawn to practices that harm and attached to the things that are poisonous and destructive, and don't let them go. Because why? The sutra is very, it's compassionate, certainly, but it's not politically correct when it comes to reading out living beings. Say it this way. Now, better yet, better analogy. Your doctor doesn't help you if he looks at the test results and goes, oh, you're going to be fine. And he sees the cancer growing, No help. Thank you, doctor. I'm going to the next clinic. Thank you, because you're no help. The doctor has to say, well, the good news is, it's not too late, The bad news is it's growing. you count on the doctor to tell you the truth. The sutra has that voice. The sutra says, yeah, samsara hurts. Birth and death is the fundamental pain. No worldly accomplishment makes it past the grave, it says. And it says, however, there is a path. Okay? So this is all summary, right? We haven't touched it yet. We're still in summary here. But I want to get people a sense of what this is. And when I'm, sitting here in this seat, notice there's a seat to the right, empty, and there's a photo in front of it. So there's a purpose. There's a reason why there are two seats up here, and I'm sitting on the left half of the table and the right half is vacant. It's because I get a lot of strength from that empty seat with Master Hua's picture in front of it. And he did what he did for 30 years every night, saying, hey folks, if you recognize what these sutras are and open them up, there's a lot of goodness and value here. He pointed out, underlined, do let the Buddha's voice be heard. So he's not sitting here at the moment in body, and he made it important for this practice of Jiang Jing Shuo Fa, of explaining sutras, keep it going. So it kind of falls to me right now, and when I'm not here last week, it was Dharma Master Jin Fo who did the job, along with Alan translating, and Jin Chuan Shi does it, Jin He Shi. So you could call the Berkeley Monastery the Boka Lai Fo Jiao Jiang Tang. It could be the Berkeley Buddhist Lecture Hall, and that's actually not a bad name. And that would be accurate, because we take this as our important job every week. And Friday nights, we do it again. Sixth Patriarch Sutra with Professor Verhoeven, Marty Verhoeven, who was a monk for 18 years. So that's what we're doing. And when I'm sitting here and need an image to kind of touch the beating heart of it, when I go back to the Buddha's own story, it's always there. What is the Buddha's own story is Shakyamuni, our historical Buddha, the fact that he got an eye up out of the ocean and then plunked back in, and he saw long enough to recognize that being king of India was going to have an abrupt end sometime. And usually the men go first, guys, and the wives are there, and the daughters are there, sometimes the moms are there, going, So he realized that his wife was probably going to be there as a widow, because he'd already died, and ideally they would have a son to pass the dynasty on to, or else there would be all the turmoil when dynasties change hands. And all the things that a king worries about come to a screeching halt at death. Right? So the prince gulp, I'm not satisfied with that. That's not good enough to just let that be. I need to find out more. Is this all there is? Was the great question that the prince asked himself. And that was enough to push him out of the palace into the forest, into the woods above Reedsport, Oregon, to look deeply into his mind. How can I say that with confidence? Because we had a young camper whose name was Amitabha. We had a 13-year-old, 13, who was named Amitabha. Brilliant little kid. So who knows where the next Buddha's coming from, right? Got a great name to start with. But the next Buddha might be named Sue. A Buddha named Sue. You can hear Johnny Cash singing the song, A Buddha named Sue. Like His Holiness says he might be a woman next time, right? So why not? Maybe one of the young women up there in Buddha Root Farm will get this motivation in their hearts and realize that this is not all there is if you cultivate. And the Dharma is how you cultivate in order to do what the prince did. Okay, so here's our Bodhisattva who's had that experience. Okay, back to the narration here, back to the narrative, having gotten his head above water and recognized that there is a way to bring people out of that ocean, the Bodhisattva sets out to do it. And here's how. And among the 40 chapters of the Avatamsaka, the 10 grounds chapter is specifically about a bodhisattva's cultivation, a high level of cultivation. Okay? So, we've come along bump through grounds 1 to 7. We're now in 8. The 8th stage, the 8th class, the 8th grade, right? 10 grades chapter would be good. 10 grades chapter. Grade 8. And we've just kind of begun the chapter. We've had a conversation between two bodhisattvas asking for the text to flow, and description of grounds 1 through 7 in preparation for going to number 10, all the way to number 10. And we're at number 8 now. And we're right at the part where the speaker, whose name is Vajra Treasury, storehouse of Vajra. And Vajra is like adamantine, it's like diamond, similar to diamond. And that's his name. And he's explaining. So tonight, as I was preparing the text, I realized that this is thin air. Anybody who's climbed mountains, there's the tree line. Above the tree line on mountains high enough, in the Appalachians, in everywhere from Georgia up through South Carolina, North Carolina, up to, Virginia, and then past Maryland or Delaware, and on up through Connecticut and Massachusetts to Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. The Appalachians run. And the tallest of them, I think, is Mount Washington in New Hampshire. Mount Washington's in New Hampshire. And it's 7,000 plus. It has a tree line. I've climbed a lot of those mountains, and I've climbed in Colorado, the Rockies, very different range. And the Rockies go up, 15,000, nearly twice. I think the average in the Green Mountains in Vermont is 5,000 probably. For a comparison, who knows how tall Mount Tam is? Anybody? Mount Tam, 1,200? It comes right out of sea level, so it's taller. But this is our tallest local mountain. Mount Diablo is taller. We got somebody online. I'm not suggesting you all pull out your phones, but check Mount Diablo. Mount Diablo is taller than Mount Tam. And because they start lower, Vermont starts higher, sea level is higher, and then you go up. But the average range is, the tallest is 7,000 feet. Don't know meters, but 7,000 feet. And the average is probably about 5. So you go to the Colorado Rockies. Diablo is 3,3848. Mount Diablo. That's pretty tall. That's meters, that's feet, not meters. Okay. Say again? Mount Tam is 2,500, and that's directly out of, Pacific coastline there. So that's these are the coastal mountains of California. And you go to the Appalachians, which are the eastern coast, and then we got the Colorado Rockies, which are just spectacular, beautiful mountains. And I've had world travelers who've seen the Caucasus and the Urals and the Alps, and they say, your Colorado Rockies, your Rocky Mountains are spectacularly beautiful. Of course, we have the Sierras in California too. But so I've been up over 14,000 feet on my feet in the Rockies, in Colorado above Aspen. And you get above the tree line and the air gets thin. You just feel that you've entered another atmospheric region. Probably that's dramatic. It's not really. You don't need oxygen there. You need oxygen at another 10,000 above that, right? Mount Everest, I think, is 24 or 25,000. So all the same, to walk up that high, you're above the tree line. And you get to a place where the green, conifers, the pine cone bearing trees are luxurious, and you keep on going, and then you get to hardwoods, and then they get shorter and shorter, and they get kind of stunted, and they get kind of gray, and the green falls away, and you realize that you're looking at sun-bleached trunks of trees that are just no higher than your head, and then you come out, and it's rock. And you look up at whatever's left, and it's rock, right? No greenery. That's the tree line. And from then on, it's mostly scree or narrow paths. When you get to the summit, I think probably we could check what the tree line is in California. It's a geological height, right? And the air seems different because why? Number one, it's not being filtered through all the chlorophyll in the leaves. The carbon transfer is not happening because there aren't any. So your lungs are breathing different air than you are in the valley, just organically that way. And so your perceptions that high are different too. I remember that experience of getting on top of Castle Mountain above Aspen, and with two buddies who worked year-round at Toklat. Toklat was the sled dog facility above Aspen, run by a man named Stuart Mace. And Stuart Mace, I think, is long gone. Bless his heart, good guy. He kept the sled dogs running during the snow time. So if you paid a lot of money, because Aspen and Vail are rich, you could get out on one of Stuart Mace's dog sleds. And he had his dogs, who were his family. And this was the summer when I was there. And, of course, there's no snow, except way, way up. And so we met the dogs in the summer. They were on summer break, summer holiday, and we met the lead dogs. And, oh, my goodness, sled dog leaders are intelligent to a point where you kind of forget it's a dog. And not only that, but they are in command. The way it's like the sled dog lead dog that I met was named Lika. And Lika, one blue and one brown eye. And when he introduced me to Lika, Stuart did, and immediately I realized I had just been put on a database in the dog's head. He had me sorted out in one sniff. Sniffy. Okay, yep. I know what you're capable of. Next, it's like the dog was completely in charge of me because that was his job. And he's got 11 dogs behind him who he keeps in line the way a drill sergeant keeps dogs in line, keeps soldiers in line. Amazing to watch. Anyway, we've digressed, haven't we? Back to the sutra. Sled dogs. So anyway, I was up there with Stuart Mace's winter helpers during the summer who just climbed a lot of mountains. And we went up to 14,000 feet. And when I got to the top and saw the U.S. Geological Survey, little metal button, a copper disc up on the mountaintop that says Castle Mountain, 14,280 feet, etc., U.S. Geological Survey, United States of America, up there. And there's the sign-in book at that little hut. The Trailwise hut keeps a sign-in book. And I did not want to raise my eyes. That was the strangest part. Being on top of the mountain, you think, hallelujah, free as a bird, right? Oh, this is familiar. There's too much freedom up here. There's too much nothing. Because the birds were flying, tiny birds, way down below. The airplanes, were just kind of over there. And Denver was a haze, way over there, right? Nothing but my feet on this peak of a tall mountain, and that strange air, that thin, unmediated air in my lungs, and looking around and thinking, what if I fall off? It's like, not going to fall off, I'm fine. But just that sudden being unsupported, we run from freedom, right? Escape from freedom, Erich Fromm's discovery. So, there we are, different, okay? What do you rely on? Why introduce 14,000 feet? Because, can I ask you to turn to page 8 in your text? Everybody turn to page 8. We're going to look at the second paragraph. Page 8 and page 9. Everybody got one? Who wants one? We're going to do the Chinese first, then we're going to do the English. And I will... You want to, if you can read the kanji, the hanzi, you're good. Otherwise, look at the Romanized ABCs underneath. Just for the sake of the form, we do the Chinese first, then we do the English. All right, here we go. I'll give you a line, you give it back. 入一切法，本来无生，无起，无相，无成，无坏，无尽，无转，无性为性，初中后继，皆悉平等，无分别，如智，知所入处，离一切心意识分别想，无所取着，犹如虚空，入一切法，如虚空性，是名得无生法忍。All right, well done. Good. Over to the right. Could we get sutra texts for all our friends? Maybe we can share with folks. Great. Okay, we're on page 9. The second paragraph. Got it? Okay. He fathoms together. Let's do this in unison. Ready? Can we all read together? Yeah, grab one if you see one available. If no one is reading it, it's yours. Page 9, second paragraph. Okay, let's read it together. Here we go. He fathoms how all dharmas actually are not created, nor do they come into being. They have no attributes. They are not made, nor are they destroyed. They do not end, nor do they evolve, and how no nature is their nature. For him, the boundaries of past, present, and future are identical. He has embodied this place of wisdom as it is, beyond discrimination. He is free from the mind's thoughts, ideas, consciousness, and discriminations. He neither grasps nor attaches to them. He embodies the nature of all dharmas that is like empty space. This is known as realizing the state of patience when dharmas no longer arise. Okay. So the standard way to explain a text in our tradition is to read the text first and then maybe do a linguistic analysis line by line, sentence by sentence, and then maybe do some history, say where it came from, and then if you can, find some images of something familiar that illustrate. So you go from text into application. You go from theory to practice. I started tonight the other way around with the story about climbing up over 14,000 feet because I had that experience. And it was my reaction to it that surprised me. This was on Castle Mountain in the Colorado Rockies. And I left out a lot of the details, but to get to the top, to get to 14,000 feet, for me, a tenderfoot, born in Columbus, Ohio, right? Flat. Columbus is flat. Toledo is flatter. The glaciers went through and left the Great Lakes behind. For me to be on top of Castle Mountain in the Rockies was, first, it was hard to get up there. I had to actually invoke my father's name. What a surprise to me. I didn't have mantras. I hadn't met Buddhism. I didn't have the Buddha's name. I was a Zen sitter, but, this was action, not stillness. So I couldn't employ my Zen, Zazen, Shikan Taza. Couldn't do that when I'm climbing the mountain. And the two guys I was with, the Toklot workers, the wintertime sled dog, husky mushers who were in the summer on vacation, they were like, "Hey, you want to come up with us? We got a ledge up here. You won't fall." And they're like on a narrow ledge on the face of the cliff, doing this kind of thing, sliding along. And I'm, human fly? No thanks. I'm down here. I'm going the slow way. But the slow way was a scree field. People know about scree? I didn't until I tried it. Scree is little rocks, right? Deep little rocks. And you go up 3 feet and back 1 feet. And you go up 3 feet and back 1 foot and up 3 feet. So it's slow going and it's frustrating. And the last 200 yards above the tree line was nearly vertical, the scree field. And these guys were taking the quick shortcut on a ledge. For them it was fun. They're daredevils. They were bored. Otherwise, this is a challenge for them. But for me, no ropes, no pitons, no helicopters, So when we got to the top finally, after sweating and being scared and calling my father's male line strength, come on, I can get up there, I know I can. Sure enough, I made it to the top. When I got to the top, I couldn't raise my eyes because it was too unsupported. The air was too thin up there. We were the tallest thing. There was nothing above us, We'd walked our way up. Now, far away, there were taller mountains than Castle Mountain, but in the Aspen Vale Range, Castle Mountain was tall. And to see the valleys and the valleys and the valleys down below, cars were too small to see at that point. And Denver was way over there in a cloud of haze, and the birds were so far below, We were up on top, and that was 14,000. That's, there are taller mountains. I don't know how tall Shasta is. Didn't we know? You want to grab? Shasta is 14,000. Okay. So, our Bodhisattva is having the same kind of experience, only he's not on a mountaintop. She's probably got her legs crossed, sitting in the Chan Hall. But her reality is that now her meditation has given her a stillness, a samadhi state that allows her to see through the Buddha's wisdom eyes. And one of the wonderful things about the sutra is we can see too through the Buddha's description of that experience. Okay? What we're seeing in this passage is the 8th stage Bodhisattva's vision through wisdom. That's what this is. So with that in mind, we can put a little context around it to kind of make sense of it. Otherwise, this is far out as we used to say back in the 60s. Far out. This is really far out. What is it? This Bodhisattva looks or contemplates and sees how all dharmas are actually not created. They don't come into being. They have no attributes. They are not made, destroyed, end, or change. What's the nature of these dharmas? No nature. Okay, so on the face of it, what is that? Nonsense. Right? It's self-contradicting language. It's the Bodhisattva's reality. Okay, in my introduction, I went a long way back for folks for whom this is the first exposure to these texts, to kind of give you a sense of where it came from. Early in the first ground, first stage, first class, first grade, the Bodhisattva was not able to see this way. Second, third, starting, fourth, yes, fifth, big change. Sixth was the complete transition. The sixth, that's the prajna paramita stage. The Bodhisattva passed through the sixth stage where he saw how things are made. What was that? The 12 links, pratitya samutpada, talking about how this conditions this, which conditions this, conditions this. When the conditions do not come together, this doesn't come together, that doesn't come together. So essentially it's Mahayana Buddhism's creation story. All right? It's not in the hands of a supreme being. It's in the mind of a meditator who has come progressively step by step. Okay, we got through the sixth, we got to the seventh, where the Bodhisattva used that wisdom of creation to start to teach. That was a big step. And because the Bodhisattva had seen through creation, now he or she, in order to teach, can make themselves anybody. It's called expedient wisdom, 方便智慧, upaya, right? And what does upaya allow you to do? Upaya allows you to remake your body in whatever form is necessary to teach. How cool is that? All right. So, past the seventh, now to the eighth. We're just starting it, but what's ahead? The Bodhisattva is using that ability to teach now to expand that ability. And what you're seeing here is a further transformation of this Bodhisattva's consciousness, you could say, or his reality, his mind, his body, to a place that does not ever go backwards. And up until this point, even to the seventh stage, the Bodhisattva can revert in his or her progress. But here we've got, as soon as we hear De Wu Sheng Fa Ren, that statement, that's a state called Avatamsaka Sutra, right? No further retreat. Big deal. Somebody asked Master Hua, they said, Shifu, what are the real, turning points? And he said, Fa Da Puti Shin, De Bu Tui Zhuan. What are the two major milestones in the career of a bodhisattva? The first is when you make that bodhi resolve, bodhicitta they call it. When you realize that your potential is to be a Buddha. Not Buddha-like, but a Buddha. That's your potential. In other words, great wisdom is yours. You don't lack anything to attain great wisdom. And two, when you get to this place of no further retreat, Avatamsaka, Wusheng Faren, Butuitran, this is it. We've reached there. We got there. But to get to that place, there's other language to describe it, and this is it. Another way to talk about what this is non-duality. If that makes sense. Bu-ar. Okay? And what is non-duality? It's something I can't talk about from experience because I am firmly in duality. Consciousness is very identified in me with my self and everything that pertains to the self. As long as there's a self there, I have things I like, things I don't like, things I hate, things that appeal to me, things that I reject, right? I have things I recognize as mine and things that are foreign to me, right? I've got family, I've got strangers. That's all duality. And what are we talking about? Day and night, right? Is day and night a theory? No. Tell the earth not to rotate? Tell it not to circle the sun? That's a bigger system than my willpower, right? It's going to happen. Whether I like it or want it, it's going to happen. Okay, that's duality. Is there an alternative? Is there any other way of looking at these things? Bodhisattva has realized it. Now, why? Because we're into a level of, you could say, biophysics, sort of. That's not an appropriate term. We're into a level of reality created by the perceiver of reality. Biophysics. Connie? Can't hear. Still can't hear. Here we go, every week. Connie, talk a little louder, please.
Could psychophysical work, like the psychophysical awareness or experience?
Yeah, okay, I mean, that's good. I'm creating words as I go, so It's like you can throw any words at it you want.
Yeah, I read it from a commentary.
Yeah, there's no particular word to describe. It's because why? It's more than it's more than nouns and verbs. The Bodhisattvas, let's say ours, my reality is determined by the way I see it. Duh, right? Obvious. Sure. If I, for example, close my eyes, all of you folks disappear. Where'd you all go? Oh, you're back, you know. You didn't go anywhere. I shut my eyes. So, subject and object, perceiver and perceived, okay. So, the Bodhisattva here has been through his or her meditation. It's not mysterious at all. It's even mechanical. It's very concrete, pragmatic, and furthermore, repeatable. It's not exclusive to some bodhisattva class or caste or, alien life form. This is the description of how a human being can transcend duality using his or her own body and mind. What's the secret? Apply the Dharma. Apply the Bodhisattva practices explained in the sutra, and you can get to this place where duality no longer applies. It's not broken, but you can see through it. Okay? So what happens here is the Bodhisattva has opened wisdom eyes. That's useful. We'll use those descriptions. I was checking our Tang Dynasty commentary by Master Chengguan, the commentary from the 9th century. And what I liked was the phrase that was talking about this passage. And he said, he's using wisdom's view. He's using wisdom's spectacles, let's say, to look at the world. And that doesn't mean duality's gone. Duality works just fine for him. He's clearer on it than ever before, but he's not limited to a binary view. Okay, anybody, I could grab a word like quantum computing. I can't use it with authority because I don't understand quantum computing, but I know there's a fascinating new field that goes beyond zeros and ones lined up in 8, right? 8 zeros and ones, which is kind of the foundation of the code that we're using when we send an email. Quantum computing, I shouldn't even point to it because I can't say the first thing about it, but I know it's another horizon, okay? And to get to it, you need to use binary code, zeros and ones. But when you get there, it's a quantum leap. It's another octave. It goes from this is so nice to have this available to be able to demonstrate. It goes from to, try again. Okay, from to same string, probably the same 440 basis, but very different. Bisecting the string puts it in another realm, octaves. So now the Bodhisattva can do that with reality. What does it say? He fathoms how all dharmas, what are all dharmas? That's reality. Everything the eyes see, the ears hear, the nose smells, the tongue tastes, the body touches, the mind thinks, right? 6 senses. How do you know reality? What impacts your senses? Including inner reality that the mind impacts. Objects of mind. Small d dharmas, right? Not capital D dharma, what the Buddha spoke, but small d dharmas. The Bodhisattva's perception now has widened, has advanced, has deepened, has transmuted, so that not only is there a bom, but there's also a ba at the same time. Always. He can get there, she can get there. It's open and available to him. What does he see? He sees how the conditions coming together to create dharmas were never made by anybody, but they're always there. And they don't go away, but they do. Okay? Since we got to step 6, anybody who's ever touched Prajnaparamita texts, somebody ever open the Diamond Sutra and go, hey, this makes no sense. But it challenges you to kick your mind into another realm, right? The Bodhisattva takes all living beings across, but not a single living being is taken across. And you go, is that a typo? Who's kidding around here, That's what it says. That's the wisdom mirror open. That's the quantum step. It's not merely a linguistic contradiction. That would be too puny, right? Oh, the Buddha doesn't know what he's talking about. Or he's playing games, right? Or this is silly. Well, if it's silly, then go, read a Marvel comic and enjoy the stories, great stories. But you won't find wisdom the way you find it in the Buddha saying, you know what? Your mind can see this way, and if you do, you're free of the consequences of the binary world. Understand there's more than one level of reality operating here at once. So you could say it's the Buddha's answer to the question, is this all there is? Obviously not. Our senses are so limited, right? If that were not true, how come you can't see your Wi-Fi signal that animates this thing? You can't, but this can. How strange, right? How come we can't see ultraviolet? How come we can't see infrared without a special device? Well, because our eyes don't work that way. Right. Limited, huh? Right. How come we can't see radio waves? KQED is right in this room, filling in a certain spectrum here. Can I hear it? Not until I look for 88.5, So how strange. We totally accept these limitations and assume that's it. Right? Well, the Bodhisattva says, I know it's not. And we got a new set of analogies. Somebody once ran through the number of radios present in this device, calling them radios. You could call it that. You think of radio. Anybody ever make a crystal set for fun? Science project? Nobody my age. Back when, I don't know, David, did you ever make a crystal set? Your dad did. Now I guess I shouldn't pretend. What's that? Way too, no, come on, that's memory. We still remember. We got to keep those memories alive. What's a crystal set? A crystal set is when you get these very familiar, hardware store available pieces. You get a nail and you get some copper wire and you wrap it by hand, and I don't think I can recreate it for you, but when you're all done, you plug it in and you move the wire over here and you hear a radio station suddenly brought out of empty space by your homemade Jimmy's Doghouse crystal set radio, And it was the early days. And you can do it yourself. It's a Boy Scout project, right, Jin Chuan? Did you get the radio merit badge? You didn't. And you were an Eagle Scout and you didn't get the radio merit badge. Oh my goodness. So the radio merit badge was available for people to make their own radio. And the radio stations are all there waiting for you to grab them. Why didn't you? Well, I didn't know how. Well, they're there, You could have heard the weather. You could have heard the news, right? So yeah, how amazing that you just put these pieces together. Whoa, it's been there all along. Okay, shortwave, ho-ho. AM, FM, ho-ho. Somebody said, how many radios are there in your phone? Well, GPS is a radio. There are cameras now that do GPS. What else? Bluetooth is a radio. It's right here. Okay, what else? Your phone is a microwave radio, they say. I'm not up on it. But so you got those three. What else? There's Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, GPS, phone. Any other telecommunications expert? Amitabha? Don't know? I won't embarrass you. Come on, dude, I was counting on you to know this stuff. Who knows what kind? Anybody else? Okay, so there's a handful of radios in your phone. And what are they doing? Each one of them is dedicated to pulling something totally invisible out of the air and delivering it to you perfectly. Okay? How neat, right? If you don't have the phone, it's as if it wasn't there. But it's there. Bodhisattva is creating his crystal set. Right? We got a whole new set of analogies here to work on. Right? So he's turned his body and mind into a receiver. And just like GPS, I got a whole box of paper maps. Flip, 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 flip. Hope the wind's not blowing. Oh, Your map, your paper map, it winds up this big and you got to go, and then, turn it this way, Hope it's not dark because, no flashlight. You're lost. Your map. And then you fold it back up. Wrong, right? You never know anybody who traveled with the unfolded map? I never could. I had to fold it back up till it gets the AAA fold, Forget that. GPS. Oh. Turn left at the next signal. Thank you very much. I told you to turn left, idiot. No, wait, shut that up. So, okay, we didn't know. Now we do. Now we've got all these totally amazing radios. The Bodhisattva says there is something inside able to pull down wisdom and transform duality into another level of perception. Totally intact, totally functioning simultaneously. Who knew, right? Well, the sutra always knew, and we can too if we open it. If we don't open it, then it doesn't exist. Open it up, and here it's been functioning for 2,600 years. Okay, what does he see? He sees that dharmas are not destroyed, they don't end, they don't. For evolve, we used zhuan, bu zhuan. They don't turn, meaning they don't go from an earlier state to another state. They don't grow, you could say. Zhuan could also be translated as grow. Okay, wu jing wu zhuan. And now the next one is the statement of non-duality, wu xing wei xing. They take no nature as their nature. Okay, and it's so directly a contradiction that you gotta move it up, or else you just dismiss it, right? Which is quitting. We don't want to quit. Stick with it. Wuxing Weixing. No nature is their nature. Okay, what is it? That's a cold, empirical, scientific way to talk about reality from the Bodhisattva's perspective. That's science. That's, not opinion. This is how it is. It even says the boundaries of the past, present, and the future are not different. To say identical, that we need a new word for that one. Okay, translation team, Yuan and everybody who joins us, Alan, and on our weekly, and Jerry, our weekly Avatamsaka translation, retranslation, 初中后继皆悉平等. Okay, beginning, middle, and end boundaries are completely equal. I struggled with that. Is it they're equal? The boundaries are equal? No. They're impartial? No. The boundaries don't judge. They're identical? Kind of. What it means is they vanish. They're erased. There is no place where beginning becomes middle, where middle becomes end, where end returns to beginning. They're one pingdang. Pingdang means equal and level, impartial, flat almost. You could almost say boundaries of beginning, middle, and end are I want to say erased, but that's not right either. So translators, Connie's on every week. We're soliciting members for our translation team. Anybody who wants to join us every week, we look at the sutra and take another crack at putting it into English out of Chinglish, which it was for a long time. So those boundaries, it's like you're traveling from Washington State to British Columbia, and they just wave you across. Don't stop. Don't check your passport. Don't ask how many people in the car and where they were born. Mushy and kind of indistinct. 初中后继皆悉平等. Beginning, middle, and end are entirely the same. So this is reality from the Bodhisattva's. What is he doing? This Bodhisattva is embodying the place of wisdom as it is. That's my coining of that. What is it? It's 无分别如如智知所入处. That is one of the hardest sentences to translate I've ever found in the sutra. Because why? There's no English equivalent for ru ru zhi. Wisdom as it is. Thus wisdom. Listen to the word by word. This is a Avatamsaka sentence talking about the Bodhisattva's wisdom. Y'all see where I am? I'm in the middle paragraph, 3 lines down. It says, 无分别如如智知所入处. 处 place, 入 entry place, 知所 that which entry place, 如如智 of thus wisdom, 无分别 which doesn't discriminate. He has embodied this place of wisdom as it is, beyond discrimination. That's my best crack at it. Anybody want to improve that? Can you? Look at that. No discrimination, like wisdom, that which entry place. What is it? It's the Bodhisattva moving from duality to non-duality. It's kind of like putting, I don't know if you ever saw, oh, here's another one, David. Stereopticons. Remember? What did they call them? It was a viewer, and you put one of those cards in it that were round, and they had little cellophane frames, and you would turn it. It was a stereo viewer. One was red, one was green, and it would give you depth, like you'd see the Niagara Falls. Did you ever have one of those, David? Say again? You were deprived, man. You know, all these newfangled gadgets, right? This is in Canada. My grandmother had one of these in Quebec, right? And it was, I remember the heavy black plastic, and it was called a stereo viewer. Maybe somebody online can, if I had my browser, I would look one up. I'm sure they're out there to be seen. It was a little, I don't know if it was made by Kodak. It might have been made by Kodak. But the deal was, it had a cardboard wheel with cellophane green and red. Kind of like, anybody ever see a 3D glasses in a movie, right? 3D horror film, you get the glasses and all. Well, this was a hand viewer, and you could buy the wheels, and the wheels were America's spectacular scenery, you know, the Niagara Falls and Yellowstone, Old Faithful Geyser, and the Grand Canyon, and the Golden Gate Bridge and stuff. And you would turn the wheel and look through red and green, and it would be 3D. Okay? So that's what the Bodhisattva is able to do now. He is able to go from ordinary binary vision, dualities, right and wrong, true and false, day and night, male and female, up and down, yes and no, love and hate, and flip it like the stereopticon viewer to non-dual wisdom and back as he or she pleases. Okay? Now, check it out. He is free from the mind's thoughts, ideas, consciousness, and discriminations. They don't dominate the mind. They don't rule the mind any longer. He neither grasps nor attaches to them. They run just fine. He doesn't grab them. He embodies the nature of all dharmas that is like empty space. What is this like? What is empty space? It's here. It's everywhere. It's in us, but it's not us. We can use it, and it'll be here when we're gone. And we can define it. You can't grab it, and you can't get rid of it. Empty space. That is the nature of all dharmas. This is known as realizing the state of patience when dharmas no longer arise. Wu Shang Fa Ren. Okay. Finally, we got here. I've been kind of promising this state for weeks now. Yeah. Do we have any replacement batteries? I'm Hello. We're back. So this, for weeks now, as we approach this 8th ground, I said we're coming to a turning point. And you could just put them on the side, Michael. I'm all set. Thank you. When we get to this turning point, everything is different, I said. Appreciate that. And this is the turning point. We reached it. This is the crossroads. and it's called Patience When Dharmas No Longer Arise. And we've translated it in a variety of ways. Unproduced Dharma patience, which makes no sense. Because it's genuinely a hard concept to grasp. But let me say, it's the Bodhisattva's reality. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. That's a dramatic moment for a kid. You take the training wheels off, and you're up. And I remember when I first learned to ride a bike, and my dad ran alongside me as long as he could, and I was doing this and over-controlling it, and getting all tense. And he didn't want me to fall, and he just kind of ran alongside, and then he had to kind of let me go. And sure enough, I went 100 feet down Hughes Boulevard beside my house. I could ride a bike. And I wish I could say I had the same success learning to swim, but I didn't really. I don't swim well. But it would be the same if you as a kid learned to swim. It's that moment when you realize you're free and at ease in the water. You're free and at ease on the bike. That moment maybe when you get your driver's license and you leave DMV on your own, The Bodhisattva has now gotten to a place where in reality he or she is free of constraint. And you can disappear into, quote, all dharmas. Because everything that held you together as a body, as an entity, is now up for grabs. It's not the same. You are put together with different glue at this point because your molecular construction is no longer holding you together. Your karma is no longer holding you together. You are free at this point. And it's a freedom that, who can imagine this? So that's our turning point for our entry next week. And the patience when dharmas no longer arise is a patience. It's a third kind. There are three. There's patience with dharmas, patience with what they say birth or coming into being, and then there's patience when dharmas no longer arise. And I won't do more than we've been describing this moment as a real test for the Bodhisattva who gets here, because if you get to this place without the preparation, it's easy to go crazy. It's easy to think that you're nuts, because everything you knew prior to this about reality shows a whole nother side. Up is not up anymore, down is not down anymore, cold and hot don't relate the way they did. And if you come through the traditional pathway, you make sense. I can deal with it. I can handle it. Why? Because my patience is in place. But it's easy to get here and just think, no way. And many cultivators stop here and do not progress into the 8th ground, much less the 9th or the 10th. So we'll get to that next. So it's a real crisis of consciousness, not conscience. It's a crisis of consciousness for the Bodhisattva. This would be the place in the story when you'd hear the organ go, na na, dum 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 dum. Crisis of consciousness for the Bodhisattva. So that's a great place to leave us. Stay tuned for the next episode of Into the 8th Ground and Back. All right, let's first transfer the merit, because it's 9 o'clock already, and we have some photographs to share of the experience that we've just had, and we're going to share those and tell some of the stories about the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery's summer retreat up in Oregon, and some of the splendors that we experienced up there in the wilderness. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, if you take your Dharma request sheet and flip it over, or better yet, take your songbook. Hope everybody's got one, and turn to the back. Question? What's that? Can't really hear, Jerry.
When we practice the 10,000 Buddhas repentance, we dissolve all karma from past life.
When we practice the 10,000 Buddhas repentance, do we dissolve all karma from past lives? The short answer is I don't know. I don't know about you. The theory would be yes, without that word all. For me to say, yes, all your karma goes away, would assume that I know how much karma you have. And I don't. The theory is solid. Bowing the 10,000 Buddhas' repentance is for the purpose of transforming our karmic situation. So negative karma, which is the accumulated habits of harmful behavior, reduces. Good karma, new habits of wholesome behavior, increases. So bowing that repentance affects our karmic balance sheet in profound ways because we're doing it for 21 days, hours of every day. 10,000 bows. Your circulation is different. You've aerated your brain by bowing to the ground 10,000 times in 3 weeks, for sure. So, since the self is the cause of much of our negative behavior, the presence of the self, bowing the repentance weakens the hold of that self on you. You're not as convinced as that you're the center of the world anymore after bowing to the ground that many times. So, yes, that's a good thing. Whether that immediately eradicates all your karma, that would be a bold statement for me to make. And if you think, I'm bowing the 10,000 Buddhas repentance because I'm going to eradicate all my karma, you've just put an obstacle in your path. You don't want to bow thinking that thought. Bow and appreciate with gratitude the freedom to be able to work on your karma. So as soon as you think, I'm eradicating my karma, pride is there, right? You're going the wrong direction from what you want to do. You've increased the karma as you're decreasing your karma. So just bow without needing to know how much you're eradicating. Yes, sir, Simon. Let's transfer first, then we'll go there, okay? So make a wish to make a better world. Here we go. Our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, pay our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. So I wanted to mention that Professor Henry Rosemont has passed away. And he was surrounded by family and friends, and somehow Marty Verhoeven, on his way to summer retreat in Maine, stopped in Providence, Rhode Island, as Henry died, and was right by his bedside, along with Joanne and the whole family. And Professor Rosemont has been part of my path towards studying the Dharma since I was 17 years old. He was the first man to tell the Buddha's story in my hearing in an academic context. So Professor Rosemont introduced me to the Dharma in a real way. And then he was central to setting up Marty's doctorate through University of Wisconsin, and he's a profound scholar and Confucian expert authority on Confucius, who could read the Analects in Chinese and read Plato in Greek. A philosopher, and couldn't have had a better life and a better end, but he was an early champion of Dharma Realm Buddhist University and encouraged us in many, many ways. Taught at MIT, was a close friend of Houston Smith, who also passed this year. He knew Houston at MIT, and so great men of that generation. So that's one of the sad stories. So, but it's amazing that Marty Verhoeven, on his way to Maine, out on the by a lake in the forest of Maine, hard to find, off the grid, was there, with the Rosemonts when Henry passed away. So, anyway, Simon, what have you got?
So just regarding the translation of 前中后继一切
出中后继皆系平等.
出中后继皆系平等. So your example of playing guitar kind of reminds me of something. So let's say you have 3 minutes, and then 1 minute is the past minute. So it's the.
Could you put that right there?
So let's say you have 3 minutes. Like the first minute as being the true, the second minute as the zhong, and then so each minute, like on a time axis, have their boundaries, right? So in every minute you play like mi, a note, same note in 3 boundaries. So but mi is the same, So in other words, like the translation, one way it could be is like the dharmas, the past and present, future boundaries of all dharmas equal. So. And then this also leads to the next sentence, which is 无分别如如之之所入处. So wisdom of Dharma as it is. So it just
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Please do take part in our weekly gathering. Your contribution would be valuable indeed. I'm going to step over here. We're going to bring the screen down and share some of the visuals. Did you do it? One more time. Ah. Came on, but okay, you want to guide me through this? This one?
So this is a video, or you can...
Those photos came from everybody's various cameras, but they were strung together with the music by Jerry. And appreciate that. And let's see here, 9:16. Let's share. Oh, there's a wealth of efforts here to share. This is, see if this is what I think it is. Yes, it is. Mentioned that mountain lion. Was this taken by Jin Hosher's Locke's iPhone? So what you're going to look at is up ahead here on the road. It's right there. Everybody see?
That's not even a big one.
Looks like a baby.
Oh my gosh.
That's a young mountain lion. And it was there twice, with about 3 or 4 hours in between. And
that's not even a big one.
Looks like a baby.
Definitely a cat, right? Feline. And gone. And our camper and friend Andrew said that would be impossible, knowing mountain lion behavior, if the inhabitants of the car had been thinking hostile, non-vegetarian thoughts. He said if that had been Billy Bob driving down in his pickup with a shotgun on the rack, that cat would not have been playing with us, sitting beside the road and kind of pacing along, and then still being there when we came back, with 2 cars. So, interesting concept. It's a healthy ecosystem where the cougars, that means they're being fed. Let's see here. Wanted to share the work crew video created by Jin Hosher. Let's see here. It's this one right here. Work week video. Lovely. A group went up a week before. 18, Sandy? 18 people?
I have enough, I am grateful, share the blessings, hallelujah. May all be fed, may all things flourish, may all awaken, Bodhisattva.
These are not gophers, these are moles.
I have enough, right? I am grateful.
Ask a gardener. Gardeners really hate them.
Hallelujah, may all be fed, may all things flourish, may all awaken.
They make your carrots disappear into the ground. You know, poof, your carrots are gone. Oh, where'd my carrot go? He's saying, my space, you guys go away.
I have enough, I am grateful, share the blessing, hallelujah, may all be fed.
Take off your socks.
Yeah, it's
Take
nice
off
to
your
socks.
socks.
Oh, looks like he had some practice. He actually could do it. Nope.
Hallelujah, may all be fed, may all things flourish, may all awaken, Bodhisattva.
She's playing the guqin, the ancient Chinese lute. She is a boat, she is a light, I on a hill.
See, she's
How many are there? Did you count?
I didn't count.
The Zatras.
You're gonna fall over.
It's about 40.
Then we probably should do 50, 50,
Yeah,
45, 45.
This is the Chan Hall where we spend most of our time during the day. Unless we're down in the half can, which we saw, which is where the food and lodging is. This is where the classroom and the meditation happens.
What do you guys feel about feet and yoga mats?
Yeah? Generally the feet goes on top of the yoga mat.
Yeah.
That's kind of, you can't separate.
And like it's sweaty.
Uh-huh.
So what should we do with yoga mats?
No feet.
Handstands only. Clean hands.
Clean yoga mats. She is a wave, she is the deep, she is the dark, where the angels sleep. When day has dawned, when death is nigh, she carries me to the other side. Join me. Okay, so you get a sense of the community that's possible when folks come together to serve selflessly. And I want to share one more. There's a wonderful song. Fabrizio, people know Fab? Fabrizio Alberico from Victoria, BC, brought his yoga knowledge and also his photography. A lot of those photos we saw were Fab's photographs. And we also saw, he also shared his music. And the instruments that we were playing were made by Fab. And he shared a song by a man named Scott Cook. And let's see here. Here we go. There it is. Scott Cook is a Canadian itinerant songwriter, kind of Pete Seeger style. And he writes these songs that contain wisdom. This is one of them called Pass It Along. I wanted you to see the lyrics, then listen to them. This is we call it a goosebump song. This song raises goosebumps on your arms. This guitar came from a timber, from the body of a tree, through the workshop of a luthier. Now it's on loan to me. It's good company after dinner, and it fits my hands just fine. But someday another singer with a pair of hands like mine will coax out songs much prettier, still hiding in its strings, and sing stronger, braver words than I could ever sing. And folks are going to love it, of this I'm almost sure. So I'll take good care of it, 'cause I'm borrowing it from her. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. You carry it for a moment, but time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it. Pass it along. Now this here is my country. Sometimes it's hard to recognize it, but I count myself lucky to have been born inside it. I'm grateful for the rights others struggle hard to win. You can be sure I'm going to fight when they try to take them back again. Oh, and everywhere are teachers, though some fell along the way. The words they said still reach us, just like you're teaching me here today. You may not speak it loud, but it's clear in what you do, and I hope to make you proud because I borrowed it from you. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. You carry it for a moment, but time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it. Pass it along. Then there's this last verse that just really does it. Seems these days we're in a hurry to grab up all that's left to use, putting patents on discovery, making seeds that don't reproduce. If our vision is so narrow, seeing only bought and sold, we'll end up like the pharaohs, buried with their gold. We've all pushed this thing along, we've all been guided by our fear, but the river sings a song we gotta be quieter to hear. It's in every child's face, new and hopeful as a stem. Best be gentle with this place, 'cause we're borrowing it from them. Pass it along, may it land in careful hands when we're gone. You carry it for a moment, but time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it. Pass it along.
So in continuing with the text, when I play a guitar, I think, may all living beings realize that all living beings are in this guitar, quite literally. So, as many of you know, I'm also a yoga teacher, and so I'm very interested in what happens with the breath. And so it turns out that somebody else at New York University by the name of Tyler Volk is also very interested in the breath, specifically what happens to our breath when we actually exhale. And when we exhale, of course, we release carbon atoms that used to be pieces of us. So it burns up in metabolism. We make use of whatever nutrients are available through the bloodstream, and then it just goes out with the exhale. So Tyler Volk decided to figure out how many carbon atoms go out with every breath out. And it turns out that number is 500 million trillion. 500 million trillion carbon atoms. That's 5 followed by 29 zeros. So those are 500 million trillion tiny little pieces of you that used to make up your body. And so where did those pieces of you come from initially? Well, they came from the food that you ate. And so where did that food come from? Well, ultimately it came from plants, right? So we eat vegetables, we eat some root vegetables, we eat some leaves, and those are carbon atoms that become our bodies. And so when we release those carbon atoms back into the atmosphere. And so Tyler Volk also decided to figure out, well, what happens to these things when we actually exhale? Like, where do I need to go? How far do I need to go to encounter one of those little pieces of me again? So it turns out that you can't go anywhere on Earth. So you pick any place that you want to, Antarctica, Africa, the North Pole, you name it. And everywhere that you go, if you take a meter sphere of air, so 1 yard, let's say, of sphere of air, about this big around you, every sphere of air around you this big contains 50 carbon atoms of each one of your exhales over the last year. 50 carbon atoms from each one of your exhales over the last year. So that's a lot of pieces of you that are in this air right now around us.
You mean it spreads throughout the world?
Spreads throughout the world. So what happens to those, of course, they get absorbed by trees and by plants. So there is no blade of grass on the planet that does not contain thousands of little pieces of you. And so we are temporary concentrations of carbon atoms, and so are all these trees around us. And so we are having this dialogue continually with these trees around us. Okay, so I think that's pretty cool, and that brings that notion of interconnectedness, interpenetration really home for me, and it makes it very, very real. So if I think that I'm just a bunch of carbon atoms that are organized by some kind of intelligence and then energized some way, then, and consciousness is a mystery. Nobody has figured out what consciousness is. And so who's to say that these little carbon atoms that used to be me still don't have a little bit of my consciousness in them? So when I send out well wishes that all beings be well and happy, you know, maybe a little bit of that actually goes out there. If I breathe out and I hold that intention, maybe that goes out there. So, of course, these carbon atoms eventually become trees, and the trees sometimes get cut down and get put to many purposes, like building this building or building this guitar. So if I look at this top, it came from a spruce tree from, this one comes from Germany, but I also use Sitka spruce, and those trees come from around this part of the world. And these trees are generally about 400 or 500 years old. And so they contain literally the atoms of all those people that lived up until that point, right? So this guitar, if I played Bach on this guitar, I would literally be playing Bach on this guitar. So to bring that all back around, so this is a song written by somebody who's sort of a friend of mine. I met him a couple times. His name is Scott Cook. He lives in Taiwan a lot of his life, and he's originally from Edmonton in Canada, and he's kind of a modern day Pete Seeger, if you will, or a Woody Guthrie, kind of going around creating folk songs so that we remember. So he sees his job as kind of being a scribe for this time and remembering what this time was like. And so he's written a song called Pass It Along, which is very appropriate for someone like me to sing, because it reminds us that this guitar came from a timber, from the body of a tree, and so it's temporary. And so just like ourselves, we are temporary. This guitar is temporary, and this guitar will outlive Heng Sure, and he's eventually going to pass it along to someone else, and then that person will pass it along to someone else, and every person will bring their own energy and consciousness into this instrument and create whatever music that they can from it, and will express themselves through that instrument. So I feel a big responsibility, even though I created this instrument. Once it's done, it's done. It's like it's out there. It's just like when I write a song, it's done. It doesn't belong to me anymore. And my job is to just keep it alive for as long as I can and then pass it along. So that's what this song is all about. So if you like, you can sing along with the chorus once you get the hang of the melody. It's a pretty catchy little tune.
Says he passes the guitar along. He literally did. He made an offering of his
workshop of a luthier. Now it's on loan to me, and it's good company after dinner, and it fits my hands just fine. But someday another singer with a pair of hands like mine will coax out songs much prettier, still hiding in its strings, and sing stronger, braver words than I could ever sing. Folks are gonna love it, this I'm almost sure, so I'll take good care of it, 'cause I'm borrowing it from her. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. Carry it for a moment, time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along. Here's my country. Sometimes it's hard to recognize it, but I count myself lucky to have been born inside it. I'm grateful for the rights others struggled hard to win, and you can be sure I'm gonna fight. They try to take them back again, and won everywhere our teachers, though some fell along the way. The words they said still teach us, just like you're teaching me here today. You may not speak it loud, but it's clear in what you do, and I hope to make you proud, 'cause I borrowed it from you. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. Carry it for a moment, the time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along. Grab up all that's left to use, putting patents on discovery, making seeds that don't reproduce. If our vision is so narrow, seeing only bought and sold, we'll end up like the pharaohs, buried with their gold. We've all pushed this thing along, we've all been guided by our fear, but the river sings a song we gotta be quieter to hear. It's in every child's face, new and hopeful as a stem. Best be gentle with this place, 'cause we're borrowing it from them. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. Carry it for a moment, the time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along. Let's do the chorus again. Pass it along, pass it along. May it land in careful hands when we're gone. Carry it for a moment, the time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along. Bringing the Buddha's wisdom to life in the 21st century. So that will be, if I'm not mistaken, up on YouTube. Is that on Dharma Realm Live? Where will we post that? We'll post on Dharma Realm Live. Okay. If you go to the YouTube channel called Dharma Realm Live, you're going to find that video for your enjoyment. So pass that one along, all right? That's a winner. So we're done. I'm sorry to take you past our usual time. Some of you have a long drive back home tonight, having had a long drive from Mountaintop in Oregon. So we'll see you. Any announcements? Let's see. Let's talk about what we've got coming up this week. There's a Guanyin Bodhisattva recitation session in Ukiah, City of 10,000 Buddhas, starting tonight, actually. So if anybody wants to recite Guanyin Bodhisattva's name for a week and the Universal Door chapter from the Lotus Sutra, there's a chance to do that at City of 10,000 Buddhas. Otherwise, this week is a pretty quiet week here at the monastery. Anything to announce, Jin Chuan-Shi? Nope? Okay. So they say, 识道之进，非道之退，在善而从，不善而殆. If it's the path, advance upon it. If it's not the Tao, retreat from it. Select what you heard that's useful and good, put it to practice. Anything you heard that's not so useful, change it inside. See you all next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fang Guang Ho Yin Ji Hua Yan Po Pu Sa